Hello everyone, in today's video we are going to discuss how to punish early queen attacks from our opponent and in what type of positions or opening we should develop our queen early, which is absolutely fine. So the video is going to be very critical if you really want to improve your game. So I don't want to waste any further time, so let's start. So starting with the most common opening, which is e4 e5, and here many of the players at the very lower level likes to play the move queen to h5. And the idea is pretty clear. White is attacking the pawn on f7 and e5. So many of the players would like to play knight to f6 attacking the queen, but they simply lose the e5 pawn. Or many of the players would like to play g6 attack the queen, and eventually they get a check and they lose the rook and eventually the game. So this is all the wrong way to play. You need to think what is the idea of your opponent. For example, after queen h5, my opponent is attacking the e5 pawn, so I can play knight to c6, simply developing my knight. And now white plays bishop to c4. Now what is the idea of my opponent? The idea of my opponent is to checkmate me on f7. So I can't play something like knight to f6 attacking the queen because I'm getting mated. So here there are ways you can play queen e7, queen f6 or even g6. So let's check g6. Now white simply drops back the queen. And once again, you can't simply develop your developing pieces nicely because you are again hanging a checkmate on f7. You need to watch the idea of your opponent. So now we are having a mate on f7. So we can play queen f6, but I guess simply knight to f6 is fine. Developing the second piece. And here many of the players would like to play g4. What is the idea? The idea is to play g5. And you can't again play something like bishop g7 because after g5, your knight is attacked and you are still having a checkmate on f7. So you need to think, how can you protect yourself from this idea? Is there any way to counterattack, or do I have to play something like h6 to simply defend the g5 idea? There are usually the two ways. So if I think of some ideas to counterattack my opponent, I'm thinking, can I attack the queen somehow? Yes, I can by playing the move knight to d4, attacking the queen. And surprisingly, now queen moves, now we can simply capture on f2, give a check and capture the queen and win the game. And if our opponent moves the queen somewhere like c3, now the e4 is hanging, the g4 is hanging, and the position is completely winning for black. So that's what's happened. So now let's try to discuss what happens if after knight to f6, if white tries to play c3, simply covering the d4 square. Now we can simply play bishop to g7, just focusing on developing our pieces. We can short castle, we can maybe play d5 break, get this bishop to g4, attack the queen. So first we need to finish our development, and then we try to attack our opponent queen. This is the usual way to do it. Now going back and thinking after e4, e5, if my opponent plays, let's say, queen to f3, and now we can simply once again develop our knight to c6, and now once again our opponent plays bishop to c4, threatening a mate on f7. We can simply develop it, protect it by playing knight to f6. And now let's say g4, once again I am having a counter attack with knight d4, and already d5 is a very strong move because my idea is to play bishop into g4. And the game is over. The queen is kind of lost and the position is completely winning for black. So this is how you can easily punish early queen attacks. For example, if white plays c3, covering the d4 square, knight to f6, developing our minor pieces. And the position is extremely fine. You are having many ways to continue the position. Bishop c5, short castle. You can even strike in the center with d5. Now, many of the people would be thinking, okay, let's say I'm playing e4, e5, and now I play the move knight to f3. And now my opponent plays queen to f6. How to respond to it? After queen f6, you will realize the queen is not really doing much. And there is no particular idea behind queen to f6 because nothing is hanging. So I can simply focus on developing my pieces with knight to c3. And at the same time I'm developing my pieces, I'm also creating some threats to attack my opponent queen at the same time. So for example, if we have bishop c5, we can play once again knight g5 with the same theme. And for example, if we have c6, Now we can at least play bishop to d4. Or else you can at least play bishop c4, developing all your pieces, a short castle, and have a nice game with d3, bishop g5, trapping the queen on f6. For example, after knight to c3, if your opponent plays c6, and now you can play simply d4. Strike in the center. Why? Because after take you are having bishop g5, attacking the queen. So how did you get up with such a creative idea? The idea is pretty simple. I'm thinking of a way to attack the queen. But how is the question? I can simply play d4, takes. And at the worst case, I can even play queen to d4, trading off everything. And white is at least better because white has developed both his knights compared to the black pieces, which has not even developed his one minor piece. And we can even play bishop g5, attack the queen, and simply capture with the pawn with the knight. And we can just keep chasing the queen. For example, g3, bishop f4, bishop g2, short castle. So this is how you can simply attack, you can simply punish your opponent with such early queen attacks, which like basically developing your queen early in the game, which is not doing anything, you are simply going to get punished for such brutal mistake. Now let's try to understand what are the positions and the opening where you can simply develop your queen pretty happily. So first, like we have a very standard opening, which is also known as the Vienna opening. Let's say knight c3, knight to f6, and we play f4. The main move is to play d5. We take, and here white can play the move queen to f3, which is a very fine move in the position. Why? Because white is having some threats. White is attacking the knight, attacking the pawn. You can't play something like knight g5 because you're already losing the pawn on d5. So basically, the way you can develop your queen early out in the openings here is, whenever your queen is somehow guarded behind some defense, like your opponent can't really attack your queen. For example, the opponent can't really play bishop to g4 because the bishop would be hanging. The opponent can't play knight g5 because I can simply capture the pawn. So basically, I'm developing my queen behind some, you can say, pawns or something. I'm having a defense in front of me. You can't really attack the queen. This is the way you can develop your queen pretty happily. So yeah, queen f3 is extremely fine move in this position. And looking at some other openings as well. For example, let's take the opening like we have the Sicilian defense. Knight f3, d6, takes, knight to f6, a6, and now black can develop the queen with queen to c7. What is the idea? Why developing the queen so early when we are not developing our minor pieces? So guys, queen to c7 is extremely fine move first of all, because I've already played a6 covering the b5 square. So white can't really attack the queen. You can't put your knight to d5 because I'm at least having knight into d5. The d5 square is already covered up. So my queen is not really getting attacked. And at the same time, I'm stopping white from this idea of developing the bishop to c4. So basically, you can develop your queen if you're having a defense in front of you. And basically, your queen can't really get attacked or chased away. That is the openings, or you can say the way you can develop your queen pretty happily. Let's look at some other openings. Let's say, for example, the London system, which is pretty common. Let's say we have d4, d5, bishop f4, knight f6, e3, c5, c3, and queen to b6. The question is once again the same. Why developing the queen so early? Guys, the idea is still the same. Because first of all, you can't really attack the queen. Like, how can you attack the queen? You can capture the pawn, but I can simply capture the pawn back. And you can't really attack the queen. You can play b4, but nothing is happening. I can simply like go away and nothing is happening. You can't really attack the queen. Nothing is happening. For example, if you try to play a4 with the idea of bishop to b5, I can simply play bishop to d7, stopping this idea. Or even a6 works, covering the b5 square, and nothing is happening. Everything is fine. So that's why this is like extremely fine position. So usually after queen b6, white meet this move with queen to b3, offering a queen trade, where we can simply play c4, have a queen trade, have this open a file with the ideas of b5, b4, and basically black is extremely fine. So yeah, this is definitely one way you can develop your queen out early in the opening, because we are attacking the b2 pawn. And at the same time, the queen can't really get attacked by the white pieces. And yeah, this is how you can develop your queen out early in the opening. And definitely, there is one opening we need to discuss, which is known as the Scandinavian Opening, where the queen comes out at the very second move. So is this opening a good opening or a bad move? Or a bad opening? First of all, the opening is extremely fine. This opening has been played by Magnus Carlsen, because after knight c3, definitely the queen is attacked, but I can at least play queen d8, and everything is fine. If I play something like queen to f5, this is definitely a wrong move, because now the queen can simply be attacked. Let's say knight f3, and now the idea is bishop d3 attacking the queen on f5. Definitely putting the queen on f5, which is definitely a vulnerable square, where the opponent pieces can attack your queen, is definitely the square or the place where your queen is not be deserving at the square. So for example, after knight c3, I can play queen to a5. This is also a fine move, because once again, you can't attack my queen. For example, knight f3, knight f6, bishop c4, bishop f5, short castle e6, g4, c6. My idea with c6, which is the usual idea here, is to simply pull back the queen to c7. For example, after bishop d2, white's idea is to move the knight and attack the queen. And now I can simply play queen c7. And a good thing here is, once again, my queen is developed but can't really be attacked, because the b5 and the d5 square is already covered by the c6 pawn. You can't play bishop f4 because I can simply capture the bishop. So that's why this is extremely fine way to play, and the extremely fine way of developing your queen, and when to punish your opponent early queen attacks. So basically, after you are now pretty much prepared of when to develop your queen and when to punish your opponent queen attack early out in the game. And now finally, it's game time to discuss how a player simply destroyed his opponent because of his early queen attack. So let's try to discuss it. Okay, so we have a game. This game is played by two players who are having around 1000 rating on league chess. So we have e4, e5, queen h5. Black developed knight c6, bishop c4, threatening a mate on f7. So g6, queen f3, again threatening a mate. Knight to f6, knight to e2, bishop g7, knight c3, short castle. So black simply focused on developing his pieces and finishing his development, at the same time not allowing white to get with his ideas like checkmating on f7. So d3, knight to b4. Now finally, once black has finished his development, now black is having some ideas with attacking on f2 and having some of the ideas of capturing the rook. So bishop b3. And now we have d6 and developing the bishop attacking the queen. And now you can already realize why queen f3 is a mistake. Black can easily develop his bishop and attack the queen. Queen e3 and now bishop e6. The idea here is, for example, h3, takes, and the idea is to capture the pawn and attack the queen and the rook. And this is kind of exactly what happened. h3 was played, takes, and now knight c2. And now you can already realize, because of white's early queen development or attack, now the queen is getting chased away and white loses the material on h1, on a1. And now knight b3, knight captures the bishop, and now black is complete a rook up. So finally, after knight to b5, black decided now it's time to get developing with the queen and try to attack the white king, because now it's extremely fine move as you have already developed all your pieces. So not developing the queen is extremely fine move. Knight g3, check, the queen falls back, check, we have queen f4, takes, bishop h6, developing the bishop, rook over here, rook d8, queen to g5, rook to c8, takes, and we have a mate on f3 on the 27th move. So this is how even 1000 rated player defeated 1000 rated player by punishing the early queen attacks. So yeah, I think you guys are pretty well prepared of how to punish the early queen attacks and when to develop your queen early out in the openings. What are the criterias? So guys, if you learned anything new from this video, make sure to like the video, share this video with everyone, and make sure to subscribe to our channel if you are new to our channel, because we are going to come up with these such more interesting videos like this. So yeah, till then, stay tuned and keep watching One Shot Chess.